Mother is Darren Aronofsky's newest film, and it's mainly starring Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem, and secondary characters, Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer. And it's an interesting film, but my biggest problem with that is it's all metaphor over story, because the actual story makes zero sense. And the metaphor is relatively simple. I mean, there's a couple ways you could take it, but it's all about metaphor and not about story.
We spend all our time here. I want to make a paradise.
She redid all of it, every last detail. And she breathed life back into every room.
Are you happy?
I love you.
So the first part of my review will be spoiler-free, but I might go into spoilers a little bit later. But the basic idea is that there's Jennifer Lawrence is married to Javier Bardem, and he's a writer, and he has writer's block, and these people come into the house like saying that they thought it was a bread and breakfast, and like a lot of stuff goes down and inspires him to write some more, and a lot of stuff goes down, and that's the movie. And I think that's the biggest problem with it. But like when you talk about what the story is, there really isn't a story. I mean, you have a bunch of events, but mostly it consists of Jennifer Lawrence walking around the house. That's the whole movie, is her like walking around looking at things and being beaten and being like abused verbally and physically. And it's like, what's the point of the movie? That's the thing. I'll talk about the metaphor later. But, no matter what all the metaphors might be, what's the point of them? Like, none of it really has a point. It doesn't feel like Darren Aronofsky is trying to say anything. He's just doing, like, an experimental art house film that the studio, for some reason, gave him, like, $30 or $40 million for. And it's odd. Like, and especially I hated how they advertised this film, because they tried to sell it as a horror film, essentially. And it is not a horror film. It is a straight-up drama with really, like, horrible moments a couple times. But it's nothing like a horror film. Especially, like, the first trailer and the first couple of trailers, they were trying to make it like a psychological horror. And I can kind of see some of the stuff, if they showed stuff that was in the movie. But then the week before it came out, in front of it, they had this like Grindhouse trailer that was really deceptive. Like, it's honestly one of the most deceptive trailers I've ever seen. The most deceptive marketing strategy I've ever seen from a movie. And it worries me what film companies will do later, try to get people in the seats. Like, I think they're saying the film company must have said, like, look at this film he made. We gave him all this money. He made this? How do we sell this? Well, we do have It coming out the week before. Why not try to sell it as a horror film? That'll get some butts in the seats. And like, oh, okay. Should we be worried about what they'll think about it? Like, nah, all we care is they get a little bit more money out of it. And what happens is it gets the dreaded F Cinema score, which only has like 20 films have ever gotten it. And that's like, the Cinema score has been around for a couple decades. So, I mean, that's not a good accomplishment. So the film is shot well, and it's acted well, and I mean, it's a very competent film. And I mean, Darren Aronofsky, if you like his films, I love a lot of his films, but I really disliked his Noah. And this is, again, kind of in line with Noah a little bit, because he's kind of religious, Darren Aronofsky, and he wants to do really interesting things with his religion, I guess. But I mean, he apparently had this like fever dream that he wrote the whole script in like a night or something like that, one day, and that he had to get it out of him, and it kind of feels like that sometimes. Like, it feels like some moments it's very slow for a lot of the film, and like it kind of loses you. And then shit hits the fan, and it's like so erratic and crazy for like 10 minutes straight. And it's like, oh, okay. And I guess you can kind of say some things with it, that, that's how humanity was, with how it exploded. But I don't know. And that's the thing, no matter how you look at the film, like, the biggest thing is, if you take away all the metaphors, it's really just Jennifer Lawrence being abused the whole film. And it's like, it's not an enjoyable viewing experience. Like, Darren Aronofsky, his other films have used metaphor and also created a good film. But this, it didn't create a good film, didn't create a story. There is no story. It's just a metaphor. And, it's tough to, I recommend, they're tough to like. And I didn't really, I understood all the metaphors. I got what this film was saying, but it doesn't mean it's good. So now I'm going to go on to spoilers, and I might not do exactly, saying exactly what happens, but really talking, what about the themes were of the film. So, if you don't want to see that, don't want to be spoiled, and you still want to see the movie, I probably give it, a 6.5 out of 10. I wouldn't recommend it. But, as for what I thought the movie was about, the most obvious thing that's about, and I think what he was trying to say, because he's religious, is it's a really recreation of the Bible. It's you start out, Javier Bardem is God, and Jennifer Lawrence is Mother Earth, and the two people that come in, Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, they're Adam and Eve. And you see a lot of stuff with Adam, where he's coughing and sick, and there's a scene where he's throwing up, and God is grabbing his side with his one rib. And you see, yeah, okay, he took that rib and he created woman with that. And the woman comes in, and there's this gem that Javier Bardem has that is precious to him. And you say that they want it, and they want to go into the garden there, his room where he writes. And they break it. That's eating, the original sin, eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and then, God kicks them out of the garden, and they're still in the house, but the house is earth, and, they're, down there, and then the kids, their two kids come in, that's Cain and Abel, and, the younger son, he wants them to give him the money, but, his dad is dying of cancer, and they made a trust that the mom and the other brother decide how he spends the money. And, of course, the brothers fight, and the younger brother kills the older brother, and get, Cain and Abel. And that's the thing, right here, up until that point, you can follow it as the story is itself. That is the story. Up until that point, it could be, a story. But then when they come back from the hospital is when it completely breaks down. Because then even they just killed, and the other son is still in the wilderness on the run, but they're having a wake for the kid. And they're all got dressed up, and they're ready for funeral. And they're inviting all these people into the house. And that's when it completely breaks down as a movie. And it's just solely metaphor. And of course, this is them, all of the other humanity springing up and, spreading and growing and, kind of messing with the Mother Earth's house, the Earth, and kind of damaging it and trying to, change it. And, you have a bit there. These people are messing around, and Mother Earth keeps telling them, no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And they break the sink, and water goes everywhere, and then it looks like it's raining outside, too. And, of course, that is, the flood, Noah's flood. And, of course, you have humanity coming back after the flood and ruining everything again, now there's even more of them. And this is the part where it's kind of a mixed metaphor, and that's some of the godly, the Bible stuff breaks down a little bit, because they show a lot of, police brutality and, slavery, and, that is a lot of different things they show in this point. And terrorism and there's a lot of modern things that problems are having. But I think in the Bible, this is still kind of before that. But that the first part was Old Testament, and the author is God. And of course, he then writes, he has inspiration, and he writes the New Testament. And that they all love it, and they all spring up, and then Mother Earth gets pregnant with Jesus, and he takes a baby from her and shows it to him. And of course, they kill the baby, which is it's a tough thing to watch. And then that's Jesus. and they eat of the body of Christ, and it's a lot of weird stuff. But it's just, recreation of that, and that, God wants to forgive them for their sins. And, they're screwing up even more, and Mother Earth is like, no, that's it. I'm bringing on the apocalypse. And, that's, earthquake and fire and brimstone, and, that's killing off all of humanity. And I think, it's what he's trying to say is, well, I don't know, is that like, they're not even saying, there's no character that really, there's one character that kind of helps her, but there's no character that really says, oh, we should try to treat Mother Earth better. Like, they all just want to abuse her. And it's like, what is the point? Is it trying to say that if we don't change how we are, Mother Earth will kill us? Well, it doesn't really work. And there's also a bit at the end where it's kind of like cyclical, like she takes the heart out of her and creates another Mother Earth. And I don't know if that's saying like time is cyclical, or that God is just going to move on and create another species, another world, and then do all begin again. But if that means like God didn't learn anything, God is incredibly flawed and kind of evil. And it's just like, there's also the other way you could take it. Like, there's multiple ways you can take it. They could take it as an abusive relationship, or you could take it as, I think one that is probably the closest mixed with the Bible things, and that is the artist and their muse. That Javier Bardem was the artist and Jennifer Lawrence is his muse, and that one he's trying to create, like he's abusing the muse kind of, and then once he creates something, everyone loves it, and they want a piece of the artist in like celebrity culture, and that like it destroys the muse, and he has to use the kernel of that from the heart to bring up the next muse and for the next project he'll work on. And I think it's a little bit circle jerky, like that concept. I think it's a kind of, most likely it's a mix of the two, of the artist and the God. And it kind of creates, I think that Javier Bardem is kind of Darren Aronofsky. And this bit a little, it's a little bit like he's that character and he's God, and he's like the amazing artist that everyone loves. But again, no matter how you view it, like it's what you're trying to say. You're just trying to get this out, or are you trying to say anything? I don't really think he's trying to say anything. And it's just that, if you take that out, the story, there is no story. And there's also, with all of the metaphors, there's some things that don't really make sense. And some things even he won't explain. Like Jennifer Lawrence, whenever she's freaking out, she puts this yellow powder into water and drinks it, and like you have no idea what it is. And there's stuff in the basement, which is not really clear what exactly it is. But it's a movie, there's a lot of things that you can explore with it, but it just isn't a good movie. Like, you could do a lot of the things this movie did and also make a good movie. I mean, the filming during those crazy sections, when like everything's going down, like she's going around the stairway and seeing like the house is transforming, and they're like, it's horrific stuff going on. Like, it's interesting to watch, but I didn't really enjoy it. I definitely wouldn't recommend the film. Like I said, again, I give it like a 6.5 out of 10. Like, it's not a horrible film. I mean, it's filmed well and acted well, but I definitely wouldn't recommend it. Like, you probably stay away from it unless you want to, put yourself through it. But thanks for watching. Check out other review playlists around my head, or subscribe to me over here. Thanks.